Hello, my name is Tabitha Albertson, and today I will be discussing cost-benefit analysis for PRM 613. Before diving into the content, I briefly want to outline this presentation. I'll start with a brief introduction and provide a couple of definitions of cost-benefit analysis, both from our textbook and other outside sources. I'll then summarize the overall purpose of cost-benefit analysis and highlight some of the advantages and disadvantages. And understanding that every tool isn't always applicable in every situation, I'll provide an alternative as well. And finally, using an example scenario from our ACME case study, I will walk us through the step-by-step process of conducting a cost-benefit analysis. Just for the remainder of this presentation, so you all know, I will be referring to cost-benefit analysis as CBA in its abbreviated form. Despite there being a variety of different methods in which CBA can be conducted, the definition for CBA is pretty consistent across many sources. First, from our PMBOK book, a financial analysis tool used to determine the benefits provided by a project against its costs. I also found two other sources from scholarly journals within the St. Mary's Library, CBA being defined as an exercise leading decision makers to list and quantify in monetary terms all costs and benefits associated with a proposal. And cost-benefit analysis is a risk management process which organizations can analyze decisions, systems, projects, or determine a value for intangibles. Per the graphic, CBA is a systematic approach to calculating and comparing the benefits and costs of a specific course of action, project, or even it's helpful when comparing multiple projects against each other to determine which option provides the highest benefit or overall highest return on investment. CBA dates back to 1848 with Jules Dupuy, chief engineer for the city of Paris. Dupuy developed this system as a way to critique and justify projects suggested by his counterparts, ultimately to really ensure that they weren't just based on vague assumptions. So in its most basic form, CBA is achieved by calculating the total costs of a project, which includes direct and indirect costs, the total benefits of a project, which includes tangible and intangible benefits, and then mapping those figures across a schedule of a certain number of years, usually, to determine the payback period or when the project breaks even. This might be a little hard to visualize right now, but I will walk us through the process shortly. So in its simplest form, here's a real-life example of a tech company that completed a cost-benefit analysis to determine whether or not hiring additional employees would increase their profitability. So as you can see from the visual, we have two inputs into the process, total costs and total benefits. Looking at total benefits first, this company estimates that hiring 3 new employees will increase their revenues by $130,000 per year. Additionally, it'll save them $67,000 in vendor costs as they won't need to outsource business to third parties anymore. And finally, they estimate about $16,000 in increased productivity. So for a total benefit potential of $213,000. Moving over to costs, with the additional 3 employees, the company needs to expand into a larger office space. They need to furnish that office space and provide computer equipment for the 3 new employees. While this transition is happening, business can't operate as normal, so there's about a 2-week downtime. The company anticipates overall total cost to onboard these 3 employees at $175,000. Now that we've outlined our costs and benefits, we can calculate our output, which is total benefits less total cost. In this case, we are left with $38,000 in total benefits, which presumably seems like a good move for this company to make in hiring these 3 employees. Now, it's important to recognize that this is a very simple application of CBA and it doesn't consider the time value of money, or in other words, what the return on this investment is as it carries into future years. But we'll get there. So now that you've had an opportunity to see CBA in practice, it's a bit easier to see some of the advantages and disadvantages of its use. First, it's just a really easy tool to use that helps us make rational decisions in any aspect of our life, whether it be professionally weighing the costs and benefits of hiring 3 employees, or on a personal level, weighing the costs and benefits of trying to decide whether to buy an electric car over a gas powered vehicle. On a daily basis, we're deploying CBA without even realizing that we're doing it. Additionally, it forces us to attach a cost to intangible expenses such as employee satisfaction, productivity, and increased revenues. And finally, it's an easy way for us to compare 2 projects against each other and assess which option has the highest potential return. Some of the disadvantages, as we saw from the previous example, it can seemingly be hard to place a value on an intangible item, such as calculating changes in productivity or increases in sales. Additionally, it doesn't account for all variables. As we know, projects are very fluid and change is constantly happening. So CBA doesn't necessarily accommodate those changes or reflect those changes. So, based on the potential instability of the estimates of our intangibles, the variability that comes with long term projects makes CBA not always the most credible option when we're trying to anticipate where the break even point is or what a return on investment would be. So, overall, in summary, depending on your estimating expertise, your available historic data, CBA is best applied to small, mid-sized projects with returns that are expected within 1 to 3 years. For larger projects, a good alternative to CBA would be multi-criteria decision analysis, which I believe one of our other classmates will teach us later in this course. So now that we have a basic understanding of what CBA is and what sort of projects it's best suited for, I will step it up and present a more expansive version of how CBA is applied to the scenario within our case study, the Acme Pet Food Company. So for your reference, here is the 10-step process. I won't read each one of the 10 steps verbatim, as in the following slides, I'm going to break each step down. So, from the Acme Pet Food case study that we're all familiar with, Acme Pet Food has outlined 2 strategic objectives for the year. First, to reduce employee turnover by 2%, and second, to increase brand awareness by 5%. So, to start working through the process, step 1 requires that we thoroughly outline and understand the project's goals and objectives. So, in this case, Acme plans to host their community based pet event that includes a walk route through the downtown business community, with the route ending at the local community center. At the community center, there will be vendor booths that include local pet food suppliers or pet suppliers in general, veterinarians. There will be prizes for the best costumes. There'll be food trucks and a beer garden as well that includes dog brew. So, the goal of this fun event is to contribute towards achieving both the objectives of decreasing employee turnover and increasing brand awareness. Moving to step 2, we're asked to present potential project alternatives that might also be effective in achieving Acme's objectives. In this case, we've listed an employee volunteer program and an employee tuition reimbursement program as means to potentially decrease employee turnover and increase brand awareness. However, at this point, after further analysis, the Pet Walk seems to be the best project to achieve both objectives at a higher level, while also involving the community, which we know is important to Acme. Step 3 requires that we list all our stakeholders, and the purpose of this is to help us further define costs and benefits and how they directly impact each of our stakeholder groups. So for this case, we have the Acme owners, Acme employees, current and prospective, community members, Acme customers, current and future, other pet supply providers and veterinary clinics, the local media, and Acme's suppliers and distributors. And finally, for step 4, which asks us to define our metrics or essentially provide a schedule for the project. In this case, Acme wants to see a cost benefit impact over the next 3 years. Moving on to step 5 of the process, which is really the meat and potatoes of CBA, we're now going to calculate both the total costs and the total benefits of this project. For costs, we had to make some basic assumptions so that we could calculate total labor costs for planning the event as well as labor costs for day of the event. So we are assuming that 30 employees will volunteer to help plan and execute the event. Each of the 30 employees will dedicate 4 hours a week for 13 weeks. We are assuming that the average employee makes about $20 an hour, and based on those figures, we're calculating approximately $31,200 in project management labor associated with planning and executing the event. As for the day of the event, we have 30 employees all working 8 hours for a total of $4,800 in labor costs for the day of the event. All the other project expenses are fairly straightforward. We have marketing, giveaways, food, and beverage. The total cost of the event is $43,500. As for benefits, in the case, Acme provided us with a couple of assumptions. First, that for every 5 employees that attend the event, Acme saves $1,000 in employee turnover. And second, that for every employee that volunteers, Acme saves $1,500 in training costs over 2 years. So based on those assumptions and knowing that we have 30 volunteers, we can estimate the following benefits in terms of reduction in training costs and turnover. And now that Acme has a media presence finally, we are estimating an increase in sales of $25,000 per year. As you can see, these benefit estimates are fairly subjective, and that's why using CBA at times can be a little risky due to the variability of what might actually happen. So in this case, we observe the total cost of the event again being $43,500 and the total annual benefits being $59,500. Spread across the 3 years, we see total benefits of $178,500. Quickly breezing through step 6, we will be using US currency. And for step 7, we will be using a 5% discount rate, which is the rate of return used to discount future cash flows back to their present value. And now the fun part. For step 8, we put all of our costs and benefits together and we calculate the net present value of this investment. So as you can see from the top, in year 2020, we only see the total cost of the event. The benefits don't start to be realized until 2021 and into 2023, the third year. Under the discounted cash flows, you can see how the benefits are discounted from year to year, and we end up with a total net present value of $118,533 for the project over 3 years. I do want to mention all this might look a little bit complicated, but Excel has formulas that calculate all this out for you. So now that we've calculated everything, we need to take a quick step back and conduct a sensitivity analysis, which is more or less a form of risk management. Ultimately here, we are double checking our confidence, knowing that anything we put into the model is a risk and that there's always the potential it might not come to fruition. So potential risk that could impact our projects could be that event attendance could be lower than expected. Acme's anticipated savings in employee turnover and training could be incorrect. anticipated sales as a result of increased marketing efforts could also not be realized. Overall, though, in looking at our decision-making criteria and this graphic visual of the discounted payback of this investment, the risk seems very minimal in terms of this investment being a flop. Because our payback period is observed in 1 year and the net present value and internal rate of return are so high, we will accept this project and pursue the 2020 community-based pet event. So that concludes my presentation, and I hope you found this explanation understandable and the presentation was easy enough to follow. Thank you.